You will not touch my daughter's account, Chibuzor. Not one more naira.
Nkechi, please, it is not what you think.
Then what should I think? I am looking at a marriage certificate with your name on it, dated 11 months ago, in a country you swore you were only settling into.
That paper does not mean anything. It was just something we did for my status.
On paper, a man who sold his own wife's father's land to catch a flight now tells me a wedding gown, a flower arch, and a woman signing her name beside his is just paper. 3 seconds of silence. Then a smaller voice came back on the line.
I will call you back.
No, Chibuzor. For 4 years I waited for your call. Tonight, for the first time, I am the one hanging up first. The call lasted 90 seconds. It ended a woman who had believed for 4 years that enough kindness planted into a man always brings a harvest, even a late one. By the time Nkechi Maduka dropped her phone on the bedspread that night in Enugu, that woman was already gone. Chibuzor Igwe used his wife's money to move to Canada. Then he married someone else. Before we talk about what broke, we must first talk about what was built and who did the building. Nkechi Maduka did not arrive in this world with much room for softness. Her father, Pa Linus Maduka, was a primary school headmaster in Trans-Ekulu, Enugu, the kind of quiet, exacting man who believed the child's school fees mattered more than his own new shoes. When he died, he left his only daughter 3 things: a name that still opens doors in that part of Enugu, a modest plot of land behind the old boys' model school, and 1 sentence of advice she carried like scripture.
Nkechi, he told her, never build your house on another man's foundation. Build your own first. Then, if a man is worthy, invite him inside it.
She obeyed half of that advice. The other half, inviting a worthy man in, she would learn the hard way. She trained as a pharmacist, qualified young, and started with a single rented shelf in a shop no bigger than a bedroom. Anyone in Trans-Ekulu who ever needed paracetamol at midnight knew the small blue signboard by heart. Maduka Pharmacy and Stores. She built it 1 careful naira at a time, the way a woman builds something she intends to keep. By 26, she owned the building. By 30, the market women of Ogbete greeted her with the respect Enugu reserves only for people who built quietly, on their own money. Chibuzor Igwe came into her life the way lightning comes into a quiet evening. He was a generator and inverter technician, the kind of young man every household called when the light refused to cooperate, which, in Enugu, my people, is often. He called her Madam Pharmacist the first time they met, half mockery, half admiration, and Nkechi, who had turned down 3 suitors with better paper qualifications and worse manners, found herself laughing in a way she had not laughed in a long time. They courted for 2 years. He fixed things around her shop without being asked, and refused payment, which, if you know Nigerian men, you already know is either true love or a very long con. In Chibuzor's case, at the beginning, it was true love. Hold on to that, my people, because it matters later. The beginning was real. What came after was something else entirely. Her family did their checks. His family sent their elders for the introduction, and the compound rang with laughter and kola nut. The Igba Nuku happened on a bright Saturday in December, Nkechi wrapped in George wrapper and her mother's coral beads, her aunties matching in royal blue asobi, palm wine changing hands. Her father's absence the only shadow across an otherwise perfect afternoon. 3 months later, quietly they went to the marriage registry in Enugu and signed under the Marriage Act. They took their statutory certificate home in a small brown envelope, the one with the government seal, stating plainly that from that day this man could not lawfully marry another woman while this one lived, and this woman could not lawfully marry another man while he lived, until a court, and only a court, said otherwise. Nobody reads that language carefully on their wedding day, my people. Everybody should. For 3 years, it was a good marriage. Not a perfect one. Show me a real one that is perfect, and I will show you a Nollywood script that has not reached part 2 yet. But a good, working one. Chibuzor worked hard those years. Nkechi expanded to a second branch in Port Harcourt, with her cousin Chiamaka managing the books there. Their daughter Chidera arrived in the rainy season, a fat, loud, laughing baby whose name means what God has written. But something was shifting quietly in Chibuzor. The way rot shifts inside good wood, you do not notice it until the chair gives way beneath you. A mate from secondary school japa'd to Canada and posted pictures of himself standing in snow. Grinning like snow itself was an achievement. Another relocated on a study permit and within a year was posting a Brampton apartment and a caption like, "God has done it, no be small thing." Chibuzor grew quiet at family gatherings whenever those pictures surfaced. Quiet, then bitter.
These small boys we used to fix generator with, he muttered one night, staring at his phone. Now they're in Canada, living big life, and I am still climbing electric poles in this heat.
Notice this, my people, because it is the whole engine of everything still to come. Chibuzor was not an ambitious man discovering a dream. He was an ashamed man discovering an excuse. Ambition builds with what it already has. Shame borrows, and it always borrows from whoever stands closest to it with something worth lending. By the time Chidera turned 2, Chibuzor had found his route. A private college in Ontario admitted him into a 1-year diploma in supply chain management, the sort of program half of Nigerian Twitter will tell you exists mainly to print admission letters, not to educate. But the letter was real, and the letter, my people, was the key. With it, a young Nigerian man could apply for a study permit, and with a study permit, a second life could quietly begin. The tuition deposit alone came to nearly 4,000 Canadian dollars, then the proof of funds, then flights, then settling funds. By the time Chibuzor finished adding it all up, the total in naira looked less like a budget and more like a typing error. He came to Nkechi the way men like him always come, not with a plan, but with a feeling dressed up as one.
Nkechi, if I get there, everything changes for us. 2 years, my dear, just 2 years, and Chidera will be schooling in Canada, and you will be coming and going like a big madam. Just help me this once, and I will spend my life thanking you.
Before you judge her, my people, be honest with yourselves first. When a woman has built 6 years of life beside a man, when he is the father sleeping beside her daughter's cot, when he looks at her with the same eyes that once made her laugh at a joke about a broken generator, how many of you would truly have said no? She said yes. She started with what she believed would be enough. Her personal savings, 9 careful years of pharmacy profit, went first, close to 1,400,000 naira, gone in a 4-minute bank transfer that represented 4 years of early mornings. It was not enough. Next went the jewelry, the coral beads from her Igba Nkwu. Her mother's and her mother's mothers had sat in a velvet pouch she swore she would only touch in a true emergency. She told herself this qualified. A trader in Ogbete market bought them without hiding his excitement at the quality of the coral. 2 gold wrapper pins, her wedding earrings, a chain her father bought her at 19, all gone the same week. Still not enough. So she did the one thing her father had told her never to do. She sold the plot behind the old boys' model school, the land Pa Linus Maduka had left his only daughter, the last physical thing still connecting her to his voice. A developer from Independence Layout paid a fair price, and Nkechi signed the deed with a hand that did not shake, because shaking would not get her daughter's father to Canada any faster. On top of it all, she took a cooperative loan, the kind Enugu women call isusu or aho, borrowing against her own future contributions. Between the savings, the jewelry, the land, and the loan, Nkechi Maduka spent just over 11 million naira sending one man across an ocean. If you have ever discovered a betrayal from somewhere you never thought to guard, type "I found out" in the comments right now, because I promise you, you already suspect where this is going. But Nkechi did not know that yet, not on that Tuesday morning at the airport, Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, a little after 7 in the morning. Chibuzor wore a new jacket Nkechi had bought him because No husband of hers was landing in Canada looking like he just left a building site. Chidera, not yet 3, gripped her father's trouser leg, refusing to understand why everybody kept hugging and crying, while insisting nothing was wrong. Nkechi packed him a small bag, not of clothes, but of home. Ground egusi wrapped tight in nylon, dried ogbono, palm oil sealed in tape, 2 wrappers of gari. "In case you miss real food," she told him. And he laughed, and held her face in both hands, and said words she would replay for 2 years afterward, the way you replay a song before you understand the lyrics.
Nkechi, everything I am about to have, I will have because you already believed I could. I will not forget this. 2 years. Then I send for you and Chidera, and we start again, but this time we start rich.
She cried at the gate the way a woman cries when she is proud, not afraid. She did not yet know how close those 2 feelings would become. For 8 months, Chibuzor kept his word. He called every day, sometimes twice, describing snow the way a child describes a new toy.
Nkechi, it's like the sky is peeling and falling on your head, and it doesn't even feel like water. It feels like sugar. Imagine.
He sent money when he could, from a night shift at an Amazon warehouse in Brampton, stacking boxes in a cold his village had no word for. He sent Chidera a pink coat 2 sizes too big, so she can grow into it, and a photograph of himself in front of a wall of snow holding cardboard that read in his own handwriting, "Miss you, my 2 queens." Nkechi kept that photograph on her bedroom wall longer than she should have. Love does not check expiry dates the way medicine does, and she was, after all, a woman who read expiry dates carefully on other people's behalf, never quite as carefully on her own heart. By month 10, the daily calls became every other day calls. By month 14, a weekly ritual, always audio, never video.
Network is not good for video here, Nkechi.
A man posting crisp photographs of snow every week on Facebook could not manage a video call for his own wife and daughter. My people, when a man's network is too weak for your face but strong enough for everybody else's timeline, that is not a network problem. That is a conscience problem. The money slowed, too. First, things are expensive here. You don't understand exchange rate. Then, I'm saving for something big. Then nothing at all. And Nkechi, running 2 branches and a loan repayment alone, stopped asking, the way tired people stop asking questions they fear the answer to. By month 16, a woman from Nkechi's church, whose niece lived in Mississauga, mentioned carefully that she had heard Chibuzor was always seen with a Yoruba lady at Nigerian events around Brampton. Nkechi thanked her and told nobody that the words sat in her chest like a blade for 3 more months. Drop a fire emoji if you already see where this is going, because I promise you, you have not seen half of it yet. The truth did not come from Chibuzor's own mouth. It came from the one person left in that family who still had a conscience worth spending. Neoma, Chibuzor's younger sister, had always loved Nkechi the way a true sister loves a sister, not the way in-laws perform love for peace. She had watched the family WhatsApp group fill with careful silences whenever anyone asked how brothers' papers were going. Then, one Tuesday night, a mutual friend in Brampton posted an album to Facebook, 22 photographs deep. A church hall in white and gold, an arch of imported flowers, a woman in an ivory gown, and Chibuzor Igwe, in a suit Nkechi had never seen, signing his name beside a stranger's. The caption read, "Mr. and Mrs. Igwe, finally home, finally forever. Florence Adeyinka Igwe." Neoma stared at it for 11 minutes before doing the hardest, kindest thing she had ever done. She screenshotted every photograph and sent them to Nkechi with 4 words.
Sister, you should know.
That is the call you heard at the start of this story. When Nkechi hung up that night, she did not scream. She sat on the edge of her bed, took the photograph of the grinning man in the snow down from her wall, folded it once, and placed it in a drawer she would not open again for a long time. Then she did something few wounded people manage in the first week of a fresh wound. She picked up a pen instead of a weapon. Word travels through Enugu faster than light returns after Nipa takes it away. And within days, Chibuzor's parents had heard that Nkechi now knew. You would think a family faced with news that their son had contracted a second marriage while still bound to his first wife would respond with shame and urgency to make things right. Instead, Chibuzor's mother called Nkechi, not to apologize, to manage her.
Nkechi, my daughter, these things happen when a man travels far. Men abroad get confused, but he will come back to his senses. Is it not you and Chidera he will still take care of? Why are you looking for who will disgrace the family name?
Nkechi's own extended family joined the chorus, some of them people who had quietly benefited over the years from small gifts Chibuzor sent home. An uncle advised her to manage her matter like a wise woman. A family friend suggested she was too educated to understand African marriage. Chai. Isn't it something how quickly a whole family discovers the virtue of patience, as long as the patience belongs to somebody else? As the elders say, a family that protects a wrongdoer from shame is only borrowing shame for itself, and shame, like every loan, returns with interest. Only Neoma refused to sing along. When her mother scolded her for exposing her brother, Neoma said something Nkechi would carry for the rest of her life.
Mama, it is not exposure to say what is true. It only becomes exposure when the truth was hiding something somebody wanted hidden.
Even at Ogbete market, gossip turned in careful circles among the older women.
That her husband, one trader murmured to another, loud enough to be half overheard on purpose, the one that used to fix all our generators free, see as Canada don changeam.
Nkechi did not shout. She did what a woman who spent her working life reading fine print on medicine boxes knows how to do better than most. She went looking for the fine print buried inside her own life. She visited a solicitor in Enugu, a calm, unhurried woman named Barrister Ithioma Chukwuemeka, who had handled the pharmacy's business registration years before. The barrister listened without interrupting, the way lawyers listen when they already know which document is about to matter most.
Mrs. Igwe, she said finally, and Nkechi noticed the lawyer used her married name without hesitation, as if the law carried no confusion about who Chibuzor's wife was. Your marriage was conducted under the Marriage Act, at a government registry, not merely as custom. Under Nigerian law, that marriage is monogamous, and it is subsisting. It has never been dissolved. No decree exists, no annulment exists. Whatever ceremony your husband performed in Canada is not, and cannot be, a valid marriage. A man cannot lawfully marry two women at once, no matter how many oceans he crosses trying.
Within 2 weeks, Nkechi received a certified true copy of the marriage certificate from the Enugu State Marriage Registry. The seal, the signature, the entry number, dated years before any wedding arch stood in a Brampton hall. It was, she would say later, the single most powerful piece of paper she had ever held. Heavier than any naira note, heavier than the deed to the land she had sold. She did not yet know exactly how she would use it. She only knew a document like that does not stay quiet forever. Truth, once stamped by a government hand, has a stubborn habit of demanding to be read. Meanwhile, across an ocean, Chibuzor was doing exactly what small, frightened men do when they mistake distance for safety, moving forward faster and more foolishly, as if Nigeria and Canada were two universes with no telephone line between them. Florence Adeyinka, his new, or so she believed, wife, was a Nigerian-Canadian woman who had lived in Brampton nearly a decade, a permanent resident with a stable logistics job and a townhouse of her own. She had heard, once or twice, a whisper that Chibuzor had somebody back home, but waved it off the way people wave off things they don't want to be true.
Every Nigerian man abroad has some ex claiming to be a wife, she told her sister. It is culture. Ignore it.
Hear me clearly, my people. Dismissing a warning does not make it false. It only means the truth arrives with more force later, because you spent your energy running from it instead of checking it. Florence, standing as a permanent resident with the standing to sponsor a spouse, filed paperwork to sponsor Chibuzor for permanent residence. On paper, it is a generous act, one partner vouching for another, opening the narrowest, most guarded door in the whole immigration system, the spousal sponsorship stream. But that door only opens for people genuinely free to walk through it. Somewhere in that file, in the section asking plainly whether the applicant had ever been married before and whether that marriage was legally dissolved, Chibuzor Igwe signed a declaration from a country 9,000 kilometers from the registry that held the truth, stating he was free to marry. No prior subsisting marriage, no dependents to disclose, a clean slate, notarized abroad, submitted to a government that takes such declarations seriously. He believed the way overreaching men believe, that a lie signed far from home stops being a lie once it crosses an ocean. My people, a lie does not need a visa. It travels as easily as the truth, sometimes faster. But it always arrives at the same border eventually, the border where somebody finally checks. If you have ever been told you would never make it without somebody, when the truth was you were already halfway there without them, type "he had no idea" in the comments, because Chibuzor Igwe truly had no idea what was making its way toward him. The wheels that turn justice rarely turn loudly. Mostly they turn through small, unglamorous things. A phone call here, a form there, a document filed by somebody owed nothing in this world except the truth. It began again with Neoma. Still troubled by what her brother had done, she mentioned without malice to a cousin in that same Brampton Nigerian Community Association that her brother's marriage back home had never ended. That cousin knew Florence's own sister from church. Word moved the way it always moves inside a diaspora small enough to fit inside 3 WhatsApp groups. Florence heard it a second time, this time from a source too close to dismiss with a shrug. She did what a blind-sided woman with a mortgage to protect does first. She quietly consulted her own lawyer before her own heart. At almost the same moment, entirely independent of Florence's private panic, Nkechi's solicitor in Enugu was doing something far less dramatic and far more devastating. Paperwork. A formal letter on law firm letterhead with the certified true copy of the subsisting marriage certificate attached, sent through the appropriate channel, confirming that Chibuzor Chukwuma Igwe was, and remained, lawfully married to Nkechi Maduka Igwe, a marriage never dissolved, a wife never divorced, a daughter never disowned. That letter did not need to shout. Government documents rarely do. They sit, correct and stamped, until somebody with the authority to check finally checks. And inside an immigration file already flagged over marital history, a subsisting foreign marriage certificate is not a rumor. It is evidence. Exactly the kind an entire application can collapse beneath. Immigration systems are not designed to catch every lie on the first pass, but they are designed, patiently, to catch the lies somebody eventually points them toward. And once pointed, they do not let go. The sponsorship application listing Chibuzor Igwe as Florence Adeyinka's spouse was placed under formal review. A request went out for documentation on his marital history. A subsisting marriage certificate from Nigeria arrived in response, not because Chibuzor volunteered it, but because the truth, once summoned by procedure, shows up whether invited or not. A second marriage contracted while a first valid statutory marriage stands is not a marriage at all in the eyes of the law that mattered most. It is void from the start. And a sponsorship built on a void marriage has nothing left to stand on. The application was refused, worse than refused, because Chibuzor had declared no prior subsisting marriage. The refusal arrived bundled with a formal finding of misrepresentation, the kind that locks several doors for years, and can turn a hopeful new life into a narrow, supervised exit from the country a man once risked everything to enter. Florence did not stay to watch the rest. When her lawyer confirmed, in the flattest legal language, that she had never actually been married to Chibuzor at all, that the man who called her wife for 11 months already had a wife, alive and thriving, running 2 pharmacies 4,000 miles away. She did not scream or beg him to explain. She packed his belongings into 2 suitcases, set them outside her townhouse door in Brampton, and blocked every number he owned. The house he told his drinking friends back home was theirs had never carried his name. It was hers. It remained hers. Chibuzor Igwe, a man who once called falling snow sugar, found himself within months without a sponsor, without status he could rely on, without the woman he had gambled his marriage on, and increasingly without money to fight any of it in a system offering no discounts for heartbreak. Isn't it something, my people, how fast a story travels once it stops being a secret and starts being a lesson? The same family WhatsApp group that had gone silent over brother's papers now could not stop discussing him.
The same uncle who once told Nkechi to manage her matter like a wise woman was suddenly telling anybody who would listen he had always known that boy would disgrace this family. The retroactive wisdom that only appears after the disgrace has already happened. The market women of Ogbete, who once admired the young man who trained his own wife's business into 2 branches, now shook their heads over their tomatoes whenever his name came up, with the particular blend of pity and satisfaction only long-running gossip can season. In Enugu, a reputation does not disappear quietly. It gets weighed and reweighed over market stalls until everyone present has settled on a verdict. Chibuzor's mother, who once explained calmly that men abroad get confused, now found herself explaining to her own church fellowship why her son was not bringing anybody home for Christmas, why the money that once flowed proudly back to Enugu had stopped, why a story that once sounded like triumph now sounded, whenever repeated, like a confession nobody wanted to make out loud. Some punishments do more work than prison ever could. Chibuzor was never arrested. Nobody placed handcuffs on him. But his file, I am told, remains exactly the kind that quietly follows a man for years, resurfacing whenever he tries to cross a border or rebuild a life on paper again. His true sentence was smaller and crueler than any prison cell. He became a man who could not go forward and could not return home with his head held up. A man in his 30s, in a cold country, with no wife, no sponsor, no naira to send home, and a family who had spent so much energy protecting his reputation that they had none left to help him rebuild it. Nkechi did not spend a single day celebrating his fall. That discipline is worth learning from her because gloating would have been so easy. But a woman who built 2 pharmacies out of 1 rented shelf does not forget how to build, just because a man finally received what his own choices had been assembling for him all along. Maduka Pharmacy and Stores opened a 3rd branch in Lagos on the strength of a distribution partnership Nkechi negotiated with a pharmaceutical company that had watched her Enugu and Port Harcourt numbers for 2 years. She enrolled in a postgraduate program in pharmaceutical management, not because anybody told her to, but because she had decided the next chapter of her life would be built entirely on qualifications carrying her own name, nobody else's signature required underneath. When 2 years later, a skilled migration pathway opened for pharmacists with her exact qualifications, a route with nothing to do with any man's study permit or tuition deposit or promise of just 2 years, Nkechi filed her own application, funded by her own business, sponsored by nothing but her own credentials. She did not need anybody to send for her. She sent for herself. She did not forget Neoma. When the dust settled, Nkechi offered her sister-in-law, for that is still what she was, whatever her brother had done, a managing position at the new Lagos branch, with a salary and a respect Neoma had never once received from her own blood family for telling the truth.
You were the only person in that house who still remembered I was a person, Nkechi told her, the day she handed her the branch keys. A person does not forget that, Neoma. Not ever.
Chidera grew up the way children grow up when the adults around them finally stop performing peace and start living it. Loudly, brightly, without a single memory of the year her mother cried more than she laughed. She started primary school in Lagos, asking her mother detailed questions about pharmacy bottles. and one proud afternoon informed her entire class during show and tell that her mummy owns 3 shops and does not need anybody's permission for anything, a sentence that made her teacher laugh, and made Nkechi, hearing about it that evening, cry the good kind of tears for the first time in almost 2 years. There is a version of this story where Nkechi spends the rest of her life angry and nobody watching tonight would have blamed her. 11 million naira, a father's last piece of land, a mother's coral beads, 2 years of a marriage performed for an audience of one absent man on another continent. She had every right to bitterness, and bitterness would have asked nothing further of her except permission. She refused to give it that permission.
Instead, she built a life so full that Chibuzor Igwe became slowly a mere footnote inside it. Mentioned occasionally at family gatherings, in the tone Enugu people reserve for a cautionary tale that has finished being painful and settled into being merely instructive. Somewhere in Ontario tonight, a man who once called falling snow sugar is, I'm told, still trying to sort out a status that no longer wants to be sorted. Somewhere in Lagos tonight, a woman who once sold her father's land to fund another person's dream now owns 3 buildings with her own name carved into the signage, answering to nobody's permission for any of it. My grandmother used to say the river never hurries, and yet it reaches the sea long before the runner reaches the market. That is the arithmetic truth always performs, eventually, whether you rush it or not. It does not need your anger to balance its books. It only needs time, a little paper, and somebody patient enough to keep both close at hand until the day they are needed. If this story reminded you of somebody tonight, an auntie, a neighbor, perhaps a version of yourself you have not fully forgiven yet, do not scroll past without joining the family here first. Subscribe now so the next story finds you the moment it lands. Tell me where you are watching from tonight, my people. Drop your city and your country in the comments, from Lagos to London, from Accra to Atlanta, from Nairobi to New York, from Enugu to Edmonton. Wherever this story has found you, I want to see it written there. And before you go, there is another story waiting for you, right on your screen, right now. Somebody else's Chibuzor. Somebody else's Nkechi. Somebody else's quiet, patient justice, already written, already waiting for you to press play. Because remember this, and carry it with you longer than anything else I have told you tonight. A door does not belong to the man who walks through it first. It belongs to the one who paid for the key.